And right now we're in Studio B for Countdown to Vote 2016. I'm joined by Jacob Ogles. He's an editor at SRQ Magazine, also a freelance writer and writes a political blog. Jacob, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me,
I
Grant.
want to talk about some of these down-ballot races, especially the Senate race. Marco Rubio, Patrick Murphy. Some of these polls right now say it's pretty close. They had a debate this week. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the incumbent still has a bit of an edge going into this, going into the race, going into the debate this week. He was up in the polls by 5 to 7 points, depending on how you looked. But Patrick Murphy, he's definitely got the attention of national Democrats and is getting a lot of support. The Democrats really think they can retake the Senate this year, and I think they're willing to pour a lot of resources into Florida to try and close the gap.
A lot of people say both of them did well at the debate, but Murphy seemed to hold his own.
And that's important. I do think if it's a tie between Murphy and Rubio at the debate, Rubio is up on the polls, so that's probably a win for Rubio. But yeah, Murphy did show that he could go toe-to-toe with a national figure, and that is important.
That is going to be interesting as we wind this down. Now let's talk about the state Senate race here on the Suncoast between Greg Steube and Frank Alcock. Greg Steube, of course, the state rep, wants to be a state senator. Frank Alcock, new to politics, but this was held by a moderate Republican, Nancy Dietert, and Greg Steube. Can Frank Alcock make this close? This seems to be built for a Republican.
It's definitely built for a Republican. I will say Frank Alcock was probably fortunate that Greg Steube, the most conservative candidate, is who came out of the Republican primary. That's because that gives Alcock the opportunity to go after the moderate Republicans who want a Nancy Dietert type figure.
And potentially some independents, because we know that in Sarasota County there are nearly 70-some thousand independents.
If he can get them to vote. The only problem with independents is they don't often vote in very high numbers.
Even in general elections. That's interesting.
Yeah, maybe with the presidential election it'll help. The other problem Alcock has moving forward is a lack of name recognition. Greg Steube's been on the ballot. His father was sheriff up in Manatee, so his name means something.
And he, again, is an experienced politician already, has some time in elected office. It is going to be very interesting. Jacob Ogles, thanks so much for joining us on Countdown.
All right, thank you, Grant.